It's Itaewon Sammy here. Welcome to January, part one of my in-depth review, or I don't know what you'd call it, documentary on Itaewon. So part one is going to be the history of Itaewon. How did Itaewon come to be? Part two is going to be modern Itaewon, like what's happening in Itaewon today. And then part three will be the future of Itaewon. So I'm gonna post this on Mondays. So this is the first Monday. Then next week will be part two. And then part three, I'm gonna post the links down in the bottom as well for those, okay? So let's get right into it. The history of Itaewon. So I've been living in Seoul for 10 years, all of that time in Itaewon. So where does Itaewon come from? Well, just Google Maps and you can see a map of Itaewon. I'm gonna, again, post a link down in the bottom. And it is going to show you that Itaewon is in the center, if you look at the center. To the north is Namsan, or Nam Mountain, a central area in Seoul. And then to the south is the Han River. To the west is Yongsan U.S. Forces Base. And to the east, you keep on going to Hangangjin, Yangjae, and further on to the east of Seoul. So, Itaewon abuts right up against the army base. And in the past, in the 1900s, in 1910, it was a Japanese base during the occupation until 1945, when the Japanese were defeated in World War II and the Americans took over the base. It is a large area. I don't really know the size of it, but it's huge. And so Itaewon area abuts right next to it. If you go to the western side of Itaewon, you'll see the U.S. Army base there. So, like in any U.S. base or U.S. base area, the locals provided for the entertainment of the U.S. Army soldiers. Now, this base is different than most bases that it's an administrative base. It's not a, you're not going to find troops there. It's predominantly administrative. Whereas in the north of Korea and in the south of Korea, you'll find the military troops, the infantries per se. So in this base, it's a lot of administrative and troops who are entering Korea for their first time or something like that. Again, I'm not 100% sure. This blog is not about the base. This is about Itaewon. So anyway, that base there, Itaewon developed to care for the entertainment of the troops, be they Japanese from 1910 till 1945, or the Americans. So the name Itaewon came from the 1600s, 1700s, meaning pear. There's orchards on the side of the mountain. There are certain areas in Itaewon that you can actually tell that the houses, so if anyone remembers, 1953 was the Korean War, and the city of Seoul was destroyed twice in the war. It was captured and recaptured twice. So most of the houses here are approximately built in the 60s and 70s. And the way the roads are and everything, you can tell, especially in the older part. Not a lot of new parts. North of Itaewon Street, behind the Hamilton Hotel, right up to the top of Hyatt Hotel, is predominantly an older part of the city. The houses are built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And the streets show it too. They're very small, crooked, round, not straight. So, where was I going with that? Sorry about that. So the commercial district, which is behind the Hamilton Hotel on the main road, caters to the American soldier. So in those days, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, that area was bars, restaurants, and different entertainment venues, per se, for the American soldier. I'm not going to go into the details of it. There's enough blogs about it. So the language spoken in Itaewon is predominantly English. You'll find a lot of people speaking English. A lot of the signs are in English. A lot of the sizes are Western sizes, large sizes, and the food. In those days, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, sorry, let's go to the 70s and 80s. Itaewon had a very bad reputation. Moral Koreans would not come to Itaewon. And that was a big thing. I've known Koreans who are in their 50s, 60s, who said they came to Itaewon once in their, college and university days, but would not have thought to come when they were adults. It wasn't the place to go. So that was the reputation that it had for. I mean, it was predominantly Americans, expats, and then it was, catering towards them. So your normal Korean would not come. Your average Korean would not come. So that developed over the decades. There's a couple of videos out there I've seen of news stories from the Korean television stations, documenting the nightlife in Korea, in Itaewon area, and the story is drunkenness, public drunkenness, and fights and prostitution, etc., etc. So it was a very strange thing to see. So considering how conservative Korea is. So that was Itaewon's history, how it evolved and how it developed. It evolved and developed to cater to the military troops between 1900 and today. The restaurants, the bars, the shopping, all catering to foreigners. And that is, in short, a brief history of how Itaewon came to be. The main street is the main road in front of Hamilton Hotel going from Noksakbyong Station to Hangangjin Station. That Itaewon Road is split into the north side and south side. Behind the main row of buildings is a alley behind each north and south side row of buildings. And in those alleys are bars and restaurants. On the main road are shops, mostly shops. Then you have, behind the fire station, you have two regions. One is Homo Hill, and that is the gay district of Itaewon, obviously. Homosexual and lesbian themed bars and restaurants. Then one street up is Hooker Hill, which is, again, prostitution places. And then further up the hill, which is a very strange thing to see, is the Itaewon Mosque. In the late 70s, I'm going to say, the city of Yongsan, or the district of Yongsan, donated the land to a Muslim group, and they built the mosque on that land. And it's very strange to see all of the Muslims having to walk through Itaewon and past Homo Hill and Hooker Hill to get to the mosque. It's a very unique location, per se. But that is the biggest mosque in East Asia. I'm going to say like Korea, Japan, Eastern China, I think. I'm not sure, but it's huge. And you can see the minarets. I think minarets is what we call them, the towers. You can see the towers from almost anywhere in Itaewon. So that is the history of Itaewon. That is the area. It's only approximately a kilometer, half a mile in length. And then you have the main street and then the two back alleys. So that is the history of Itaewon, how it came to be, the area. So on my next blog, I'm going to talk about modern Itaewon, how it's evolving. And then part 3, I'm going to talk about the future of Itaewon in the next 50 years. As always, I really thank you all for subscribing. Please, if you haven't subscribed, click on the subscribe and the bell button so you can see my next video. And, make a comment. Tell me what you think. Hit the like button if you like it. Hit the don't like button if you don't like it. Tell me why. And as always, really appreciate your viewing. All right. And Happy New Year to everyone. Itaewon Sammy. Living life out.